Okay, expected rate of return. This basically is a concept where you have a thing, an investment or a project or something you're going to do, and you have various returns that you're going to get on it. So if you put $10 into it, you might expect to get $3 back after a given period of time. Of course, with healthcare administration and management issues, we're talking hundreds of thousands, millions of dollars, usually to do almost anything. You're looking at six figures to do anything in healthcare. So, but we have this concept of expected rate of return. What should we expect after doing all of this? On average, what should we expect out of this investment? The book also talks about realized rate of return. We'll go over that as well. So best way to work through this is to work through kind of a problem. So let's look at, you have decided in your infinite wisdom as a healthcare administrator that you want to build a bariatric center because everybody wants bariatric surgery now. They want to be thinner and have that surgery available to them. And if I misspell something, I'm sure you guys will tell me. Okay, so bariatric surgery, that's where they, old term used to be stomach stapling, but now they put these like lap bands in there, basically shrink the size of your stomach, or they might bypass your stomach to help you lose weight. And they've been tremendously successful for folks, helping them greatly and changing people's lives. I've actually known people who have lost hundreds of pounds over it, and they're just transformed by this surgery. So a really good thing. But you've decided to do this on the cheap. You've decided that you're not going to build a freestanding center. You're just going to convert an existing surgery center, and let's say it's going to cost you $25,000 to convert an existing surgery suite. Okay, so you know what you're going to spend, and now you got to figure out the rate of return, the expected rate of return on this particular endeavor. The nice part about this sample is the hard part is going to be given to you. The hard part is the probability. The probabilities of something happening within the environment that's going to affect your return. And we'll keep it simple. With this bariatric surgery center, we're going to look at 3 different probabilities that can happen in the environment that will affect your rate of return. So I've kind of simplified it. Let's say, for example, what could happen in the environment that would, affect your business? Well, let's say, for example, the economy, let's say ECON, and then the Affordable Care Act. Affordable Care Act, okay. So in one of our situations, the economy goes down, and reimbursements, and I don't know if this is true or not, I don't know if the Affordable Care Act reimburses for bariatric surgery, but let's say reimbursements for bariatric surgery also go down. Okay, so that's one thing that can happen in the environment. Let's pick a new color. Okay, now we can have the economy doing well. Let's say the economy does well, but the Affordable Care Act still doesn't want to pay much money on this truly life-changing surgery. And then let's say that the best of all worlds is that you have a probability the economy is going to do well, things are looking up, the Great Recession is over, and the Affordable Care Act has decided anybody who wants this surgery that is morbidly obese or after a certain BMI index, they can get this surgery. So let's say you have these 3 types of events happening. All right, so let's change some colors here. Now, the hard part where the money's made, as far as these people that figure this stuff out, they have come up with a probability distribution. And that is also mentioned in the book. And that's what we're going to show you here as a probability distribution. So we're going to have a probability distribution. Okay. Terrible handwriting. Hard to write on the iPad. Okay, so And this probability distribution is basically summarizing these three events. Now, the economists that you've hired, the experts have said that the chances of the economy going down and the Affordable Care Act not paying you what you think it should pay you is going to be 25% of the time this could happen. A 25% probability of this happening. Now, when you write probabilities, keep this in mind. This is the one thing that I learned in my baccalaureate degree, is that you write probabilities as a decimal point. So a 25% chance of these two events happening here, of this one and this one, is 25%. There's my little decimal point there. That, again, that's when we talk about it, kind of a normal talk, 25% chance. Okay? Now, the other one, you have this kind of mixed result. Economy goes up, Affordable Care Act reimbursements go down. Let's say they've determined that's going to be 30. Stick with my colors here. 30% chance that is going to happen. And in the last scenario, again, the best possible of all worlds, the economists have determined it's a 45% chance, again, written as 0.45, chance that the economy is going to go up and the Affordable Care Act distributions are going to go up. I always check myself, because whenever you have these probabilities listed right here, these are all the possible probabilities that will happen in our little universe for this decision. And because our universe is limited to 3 events, there is a 100% chance that one of these 3 will happen. Meaning that when you add probabilities together, they should equal 1. And double checking my math here, let's see, 0, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, yep. Okay, so I do equal 1. And of course, draw this little line out here, we are going to get 100% chance that something up here, any one of these 3, is going to happen. Okay, so I know I got my probability distribution listed correctly. Okay, now, with that, we are almost ready to go. There is one final piece, and that is, now that we know the probability of certain events happening, what is the returns that are going to happen on these? And again, this is going to be a given in the problem or the scenario that already be determined for you at this point. So if this worst case scenario, economy goes down, Affordable Care Act doesn't pay, you are going to be hurt pretty bad. You're only going to have a 15%, oops, sorry, it's kind of, that looks terrible, but that's 15%. A negative 15% return. If you have these mixed results, the green section right here, you are going to, it's not going to be so bad. You're going to have a positive 5%, there, I'm getting better, return. Again, these are given to you. You don't need to worry about calculating these. The economists have calculated all the various combinations of what's going to happen, and have come up with these rates of return. Now remember, this has the rate of return and the probability are 2 different things. This is, even though they're percentages, again, they're 2 different things. Okay, and then the last one, the best of all scenarios, where everything goes up, we are going to have, let's say a positive 20% return on your investment. Okay, we are now ready to do our expected rate of return with this information here. Let me see if we can just move some of this up, move this slide up here. And we won't do that. What we will do, actually we'll slide that up, that'll be fine. Okay, we'll go right to there, use our probability distribution. Okay, Now, we will take the probability of the event. Let me get a color going here. The probability of the event multiplied times the return for that event, and then we will add these all together. What we're really doing here is a weighted average. So you probably have heard this before, at least at some point in your life, a weighted average. And that's all this really is a weighted average. So for example, I'm going to give you another example at you. Hopefully this doesn't make it too confusing. Let's say you have a bucket full of rocks, and 45% of those rocks weigh 1 pound. 30% of those rocks weigh 3 pounds, and 25% of those rocks weigh 5 pounds. You're going to come up with a theoretical average weight of those rocks. Right there, you may see a slight little problem that you have with expected rate of return, but I'll talk about that at the very end. Okay, so it's really a weighted average. Now, let's open up a new slide. Okay, so I mentioned that it's really a weighted average. How do we do that? Well, we take, and you remember, go back to each one of those scenarios. We're going to take the percentage of the probability, or the probability, I should say, not percentage, the probability, so 0.25, multiplied, I'm just going to use this, times that negative 15% return. Remember, that was the economy tanking and the Affordable Care Act not doing well. Okay. Plus our next scenario, which was going to happen 30% of the time. So the probability is, that's a point right there, 0.3. And with that mixed result in the economy and the Affordable Care Act, we were going to get a positive, it's a bracket there, guys, 5%. And then I'm going to add one more, and then plus our last scenario, which was the probability, 0.45 or 45% of the time, you are going to realize that positive 20% return. So you multiply these guys together, 0.25 times a negative 15 times, and then our next situation here, 0.30 times positive 5, and 0.45 times positive 20. And what do you get? Well, the first one, this one right up here, we're going to get negative 3.75. In our next one, we get positive, as we would expect, 1.5. And then in our last one, we're going to get positive 9. So remember, we're really going for that weighted average. Add up all these together, and you come up with a positive 6.75% return, expected rate of return on building that bariatric surgical suite. Now, if you remember, or by looking up here in our formula, that 25% of the time, or a 0.25, probability of 0.25, you're going to get a loss of 15%. Ask yourself this. You have a 1 in 4 probability of losing a ton of money. Would you do it? I don't know. That's what you get paid the big bucks for. Here's also another, I guess, problem with this whole concept of expected rate of return is that we've calculated 6.75. But if you remember, that wasn't even part of the returns that we could even get. Remember, it was negative 15%, it was a plus 5%, or a plus 20%. Those were the three different outcomes that could have happened based on the probabilities in our universe. So we could never actually realize a 6.75% return with the building of one bariatric surgery center. Now, if we had 1,000 of those built across the country, some of them could be winners and losers. And I mean, the economy in some areas could be up in the country, down in other parts of the country. So you could get to this, but when you have a single discrete event like building one hospital, sometimes, or one surgery center, that's where this can kind of fail you. Like I went back to my, maybe not the best example in the world, but that rock example. So you could come out with an average rock. So your average rock would be, whatever, 1.5 pounds. But the reality is none of those rocks are 1.5 pounds. It's just the weighted average, a theoretical weighted average. So that's where this, I guess if there's an Achilles heel with expected rate of return, it is this. But it is one tool that you can use, and a very powerful one, in helping you make decisions on an investment. And then lastly, realized rate of return, as mentioned in the textbook, is really simple. That's what happens in reality. You build the thing, you buy the investment, you do the whatever, and that's really what you get. The book uses the word the termination of the event, or terminated. That means basically it comes to fruition, whatever you're doing, the year has expired, and here is what's actually happened in real life. So don't let that throw you. Realized rate of return is what's real. So think about it like that. Okay, so that concludes our lecture on expected and realized rates of return.